Alright, so in today's video, I'm going to see if a team full of 60 overall players can go on and win a Stanley Cup in NHL 23. That is right, I've made up a team full of players. Everybody on this team is going to be a 60 overall, and we're going to simulate and see if they can develop into a Stanley Cup contender. On the first line, we have Jason Robertson, Connor McDavid, and Nathan MacKinnon. On the second line, we have Tage Thompson, Leon Draisaitl, and Matthew Tkachuk. On the third line, we have Jack Hughes, Elias Pettersson, and Cole Caulfield. And for the fourth line, we have Trevor Zegras, Sebastian Aho, and none other than Mr. Connor Bedard. He's the youngest player on our team. He's a 60 overall. Now, originally, I had guys like Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, and even some legend guys on the team like Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux. But the reason I took them out and changed them for younger players is the fact that the legends, they come in at like 27 years old, and starting out at a 60 overall, they're not going to develop to that high of an overall. Now, I believe Nathan MacKinnon is the oldest player on our team. He's 27 years old. Connor McDavid is pretty old as well, but we do have some younger players in there like Jack Hughes, Elias Pettersson, Cole Caulfield, Trevor Zegras, and of course Connor Bedard. So defensively, we have Rasmus Dahlin and Cale Makar, Adam Fox and Quinn Hughes, Miro Heiskanen and Owen Power. So all of these guys are relatively young. Cale Makar, I think, is the oldest. Actually, Adam Fox is the oldest at 24. So they still have tons of time to improve to a higher overall. And for our goalies, our starting goalie is either going to be Jake Ottinger or Carter Hart, as they are each 60 overall. So whoever develops faster and better at a higher rate is going to be our starting goalie moving forward. Jake Ottinger is only 23 years old and Carter Hart is 24, so they are still very young. Now, everybody on this team has high franchise potential, so they all have the most ability to grow. So we are going to have up to 15 years to win this team a Stanley Cup, as everybody on the roster has 15-year contracts. And after 15 years, if we still do not have a Stanley Cup, I'm going to call it there for the video, because I do believe that's enough time to win a Stanley Cup with this roster. Everybody on our team is the best prospect in all of hockey, so let's go on and simulate to see how long it takes for us to win a Stanley Cup in NHL 23 with 60 overall players. If you guys do enjoy videos like this, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. NHL 24 is right around the corner, and I have a lot of banger ideas, so stay tuned for that. Also, in the comments, rate the jersey 1 to 10. I mean, it's pretty simple, black and white combo. They are Team EA, so we do have EA on our side here. Now, at the end of season number 1, unfortunately, we are not going to end up winning a single game, as we are going to go 0-82. Now, obviously, we would end up finishing as the worst team in the entire NHL. The Vancouver Canucks are actually going to end up finishing first in the entire NHL. They would go 51-24-7, followed by the Boston Bruins, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Minnesota Wild. Connor McDavid is going to lead our team in goals with 5 and points with 14. He was also a minus 192. That is tough. Nathan MacKinnon would also have 14 points. Jason Robertson had 12. Elias Pettersson 9, Leon Draisaitl 9, Matthew Tkachuk had 7, Rasmus Dahlin 4, 3 goals. Now, unfortunately, Connor Bedard would not have a single point the entire season. He was only a minus 95, but that is probably because he did not get a lot of minutes. But next season, he's moving up to that top line, baby. He's the youngest guy here, so we have to do that. Now, our two goalies basically split games, 57 games apiece. They would each not win a single game. Carter Hart having an .855 save percentage and a .793 goals against average, while Jake Ottinger had an .857 save percentage and a .788 GAA. Somehow Joe Pavelski is going to lead the entire NHL in points with 111, followed by Mikko Rantanen's 110. Alex Ovechkin had 105, Brad Marchand had 100, Rope Hintz 98. And here's what the playoffs look like. Obviously, we are not in that. We didn't even win a single game the entire year. So let's simulate along and see where everybody's overalls are at the start of next season. And the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to go on and win the Stanley Cup, as they beat the greatest team of all time, Colorado, in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Mikko Rantanen is going to take home the Ted Lindsay and the Hart Trophy, while Joe Pavelski is going to win the Art Ross and the Maurice Richard to Ovi. John Carlson is going to take home the Norris, the Lady Byng to Alex DeBrincat, and the Conn Smythe to Sid the Kid. Demko is going to win the Vezina, and the Selke is going to go to none other than Bo Horvat. Alright, so heading into the second season here, the younger players actually had a bigger jump than the older players. I mean, that's honestly to be expected, considering they are younger and they grow faster. Like Leon Draisaitl, Nathan MacKinnon, and Connor McDavid didn't grow that much, but guys like Jack Hughes and Cole Caulfield did. They would each jump up 5 overalls. Tage Thompson's up there at a 63. Zegras is a 65. Now, for defensemen, Owen Power is actually going to have a huge jump, the biggest jump on the team, as he's now a 74 overall, followed by Rasmus Dahlin, who's a 65, Quinn Hughes 65, Cale Makar's a 64, Carter Hart and Jake Ottinger are each a 63 overall, so they each had a tiny jump, 3 overall, overalls. So at the end of year number 2, we're going to be slightly better than last season. By slightly better, I mean literally one game as we go 1-82. The Tampa Bay Lightning are going to be the best team in the NHL. They will go 55, 22, and 5, followed by the New York Rangers, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Dallas Stars. Jason Robertson is actually going to have a pretty decent season considering he is a 65 overall. He would have 5 goals and 24 points, leading our team in points, followed by Connor McDavid, who had 18 and 10 goals. Trevor Zegras had 18, Tage Thompson 16, Sebastian Aho 14, Elias Pettersson had 12. Jake Ottinger and Carter Hart are still going to be splitting the games, but Ottinger would get our only victory of the season. He had an 878 save percentage and a 607 goals against average. Patrick Kane is going to have the most points in the NHL with 111, followed by Jack Eichel, who had 108. Alex Ovechkin had 103. Braden Point was up there. Rope Hintz 101. Nicholas Backstrom, who's 36 years old, had 25 goals and 97 points. Kucherov had 96. Marty Necas was up there. For goals, Ovechkin is going to have the most at 68, followed by Jack Eichel's 56. Patrick Kane 49. Brady Tkachuk at 45. Pasta 45. Rantanen 44. And Stammer 44. This Oleg Radulov guy on the Chicago Blackhawks, only 19 years old, but he would have 44 goals and 62 points. And the Minnesota Wild are going to go on and win the Stanley Cup as they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in 6 games in the Stanley Cup final. Patrick Kane is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while yet again Alex Ovechkin is going to win the Maurice Richard. Victor Hedman is going to win the Norris, the Lady Byng to Braden Point, and the Conn Smythe is going to go to Phil Kessel, baby. Phil the Thrill is going to take home the Conn Smythe. I mean, if we're being honest, he should have won the Conn Smythe back in 2016, but we're not going to talk about that. Alexander Georgiev is going to win the Vezina, and the Selke is going to go to Elias Lindholm. All right, so heading into year number 3, this is what our roster currently looks like. Now, some of the older players like Connor McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon actually kind of flamed out as they are not going to be growing that much. I mean, Nathan MacKinnon still is a 60 overall. So from now on, whatever changes the computer makes to our team, I'm going to allow it. But I mean, we're looking pretty good here. Connor Bedard is going to be on the first line with Cole Caulfield and Dylan Guenther, who's an 84 overall, and Caulfield's a 70. Meanwhile, Connor Bedard obviously has grown the most as he's all the way up at an 81 overall. On the second line, we still have Jason Robertson, who's a 67, Jack Hughes, who's a 70, and Trevor Zegras, also a 70. Now, on the third line, we have Connor Geekie, who's a 77 overall, Tage Thompson, who's a 65, and Atu Ratu, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, he's a 74 overall. Defensively, Owen Power is up to a 79 overall, Cale Makar, 67, Miro Heiskanen, 67, and for our goalies, Jake Ottinger has moved up to a 66 overall, and Carter Hart, he's a 64. So yet again, we are going to have an absolutely terrible season as we go 0-80-2. Obviously, we would finish dead last in the entire NHL. The New York Rangers would almost win damn near 60 games as they go 59-20-3. Connor Bedard is going to lead our team in points with 24, followed by Dylan Guenther's 22. Tage Thompson had 20, Jack Hughes 19, Connor Geekie 18, Atu Ratu had 17. Connor Geekie would actually have 10 goals, and Dylan Guenther had the most goals on our team with 13. Jake Ottinger would mainly be our starter for most of the season as he goes 0-57-2. He would have an 878 save percentage and a 565 goals against average. Artemi Panarin is going to have the most points in the entire NHL at 111, followed by Mika Zibanejad's 109. Mitch Marner had 109. Johnny Hockey 104. Brad Marchand 103. Austin Matthews 102. Braden Point 102. For goals, Nikita Kucherov, the sniper himself, is going to have 60 tucks on the season, followed by Austin Matthews, who had 55. Patrick Kane was up there with 51. Ovi 51. DeBrincat 49. Svechnikov 48. And Patrick Laine 47. And the Columbus Blue Jackets are actually going to go on and win the Stanley Cup as they beat Colorado in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Artemi Panarin is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while Nikita Kucherov is going to win the Maurice Richard. Victor Hedman is going to go back-to-back with the Norrises, the Lady Byng to Breadman, and the Conn Smythe to Johnny Hockey. Logan Thompson is going to win the Vezina, and the Selke yet again is going to go to Elias Lindholm. Alright, so heading into year number 4, this is what our roster is looking like. Trevor Zegras is up there at a 74 overall. Connor Bedard, man, has he ever grown? He's all the way up there at a 93 overall, and what the hell? Why do we have 2 different Connor Bedards on the same exact team? So this is the Connor Bedard that actually played the 3 seasons with us, and the other Connor Bedard, and this Connor Bedard, I guess he's been playing the last 3 years in Regina. So now on our first line, we're going to have a 93 Bedard, 91 Bedard, and 74 Trevor Zegras. Now defensively, Owen Power has jumped up to an 82 overall. Rasmus Dahlin's up to a 72. Cale Makar is still a 68. Quinn Hughes Hughes is a 62. Jake Ottinger's all the way up there at a 67 overall. Meanwhile, Carter Hart is a 64. So at the end of the season, we're actually going to have our best record so far, which is 276-4. Obviously, still the worst team in our division and still the worst team in the entire NHL. Tampa Bay is going to be the best, winning 59 games, followed by Minnesota, Carolina, and New York. Connor Bedard is going to lead our team in goals with 21 and points with 43, followed by the other Connor Bedard who had 42, Jack Hughes 38, Dylan Gunther 34, Trevor Zegras 29, Connor Geekie was up there 19, Jason Robertson 19, Caulfield 16. Carter Hart is going to win one game, and so will Jake Ottinger, as Jake Ottinger is going to start 60 compared to Carter Hart's 40 games. Jake Ottinger would go 149-2, an 868 save percentage, and a 560 goals against average. Matthew Barzal is going to lead the entire NHL in points with 118, followed by Breadman's 114. Mika Zibanejad had 110. Troy Terry was up there, 104. Marchand. Sidney Crosby at age 38 years old is going to have 103 points and 42 goals. For goals, Sergei Aranarov is going to have the most at 56 in the entire NHL, followed by Alex Ovechkin at age 40. He's going to have 54 goals. Nikita Kucherov was up there. Matthews, Kaprizov, Brad Marchand, Breadman. And the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to go on and get the revenge as they sweep the Minnesota Wild in the Stanley Cup final. Matt Barzal is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while the Maurice Richard is going to go to Andorov. Noah Dobson is actually going to win the Norris, the Lady Byng to Barzal, and the Conn Smythe to Braden Point. Vasi is going to win the Vezina, and the Selke is going to go yet again to Elias Lindholm for 3 years in a row. So now heading into year number 5, this is what our roster currently looks like. We still have Trevor Zegras, Connor Bedard, and Connor Bedard on that first line. Cole Caulfield has moved up to a 78 overall. Jack Hughes a 79, and Jason Robertson. Connor Geekie all the way up to an 80 overall. Elias Pettersson still a 68. It doesn't look like he's going to grow any longer as he is 27 years old. Defensively, Owen Power has grown up to an 87 overall. This guy, Lamoureux, is a 79. No more Adam Fox, no more Cale Makar. These two guys are going to be our bottom pairing D pair. And in goal, we have James Reimer at a 77 overall, but Jake Ottinger is going to be our starter as he's a 67. But it does look like that he's not going to grow any longer. He's 27 years old. That's where everybody peaks at in this game. So predictably, yet again, we're not going to have a very good record, but we are going to have our best record yet as we go 968-5. We are still going to be the worst team in the entire NHL. That's not a surprise, honestly. The Minnesota Wild are going to end up finishing first in the entire NHL, followed by the New York Rangers, the New York Islanders, and the Colorado Avalanche. Connor Bedard is going to lead our team in points with 53, followed by Bedsy's 45 and 24 goals. Owen Power had 7 goals and 41 points. Trevor Zegras was up there with 39. Connor Geekie had 31. James Reimer is going to win 8 out of our 9 games on the season. He would have an 896 save percentage and a 412 goals against average. Austin Matthews is going to lead the NHL in goals with 56 and points with 106, followed by a 39-year-old Sidney Crosby who had 104. Timmy Stu 104. DeBrincat 98. Redman had 96. Zibanejad 95. Cooch 94, and Pasta 93. Nugent Hopkins would actually end up having 41 goals and 92 points at age 34. Now for goals, other than Matthews, DeBrincat had 50, Cooch 49, Rantanen 46, and Tikkanen had 45. Topi Tikkanen. The Ottawa Senators are going to go on and win the Stanley Cup as they beat Vegas in 5 games in the Stanley Cup final. Timmy Stu is going to take home the Ted Lindsay and the Hart Trophy, while Austin Matthews is going to win the Art Ross and the Maurice Richard. Noah Dobson is going to go back-to-back with the Norrises, the Lady Byng to Breadman, and the Conn Smythe to Alex DeBrincat. Jesper Wallstedt is going to win the Vezina, and the Selke is going to go yet again. Actually, no, Rope Hintz is going to take home the Selke. So heading into year number 6, this is what our roster looks like. We still have Trevor Zegras, Connor Bedard, and Connor Bedard, who's a 94 and 93 apiece. We do actually have this Jack Dixon guy who's an 89 overall, only 19 years old, on our second line, so that's going to help us out. For defense, Owen Power, oh my god, he's a 93 overall. We still have Quinn Hughes and Rasmus Dahlin. It looks like they peaked at 73 apiece. And in goal, we actually have Lucas Dostal at an 83 overall, and Scott Wedgwood is our backup at a 78. So it finally looks like we're actually improving as a team. Maybe we actually might make the playoffs this season. Actually, I'm just hoping for at least 30 wins on the year. So we're actually going to end up having our biggest improvement of the entire video so far, as we're going to go 24-50-8, actually finishing second last in our division. Somehow the Chicago Blackhawks were worse than us this season. That's not saying much. We would end up finishing as the second worst team in the NHL, 56 points. That's a huge improvement coming back from 0-82. The New York Islanders and Rangers are the 2 best teams in the entire NHL. NHL, followed by the Ottawa Senators and the Minnesota Wild. Connor Bedard is going to lead our team in goals with 30 and points with 61, followed by the other Connor Bedard who had 59 points. Trevor Zegras had 55, Owen Power 46, Dixon 41. Lucas Dostal is going to go 16, 45, and 6. No shutouts, an .893 save percentage, and a .364 goals against average. For the entire NHL, Roope Hintz is going to have the most points at 111, followed by Pastas 103, Kyle Connor 103, Radulov at 102. Crosby is still up there at age 40, Matthews 100. For goals, Radulov is going to have the most at 59, followed by Pastas 57, Ovi 56, Tikkanen 54. And the Montreal Canadiens are going to break the curse as they are the first team to win the Stanley Cup in over 30 seasons as they beat the Jets in Game 7. Conveniently enough, they were actually the last Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup as well. Roope Hintz is going to win the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while Radulov is going to take home the Maurice Richard. Devon Toews is going to win the Norris, the Lady Byng, the Pasta, and the Conn Smythe is going to go to Zach Benson. As we head into year number 7, we have by far the best team of the video so far. Still, Connor Bedard, and Cole Caulfield on that first line. Trevor Zegras is up to an 81, Dixon 89, and Keefe is an 84. Owen Power is up to a 94 overall. We have Timothy Liljegren, who's an 83, Severson 82, and in goal, Dostal is still an 83 overall, and our backup is Freddie Anderson at a 78. At the end of the season, we're going to end up finishing second last in the Central, going 31, 40, and 11, so we were relatively the same team this year. We're actually going to improve a lot, though, as we were the 26th best team in the entire NHL. Yet again, Connor Bedard is going to lead our team in goals with 23 and points with 65, followed by Trevor Zegras, who had 65, Owen Power 54, Calvert had 49, Dixon 48, Wheel had 46, the other Bedard only 44 but 23 goals. Dostal is going to go 26, 32, and 9, a .902 save percentage and a .325 goals against average. Austin Matthews is going to have the most points in the NHL with 102, followed by Crosby's 99, Kaprizov 99, Zach Benson 98, Mikko Rantanen 97, Ehlers was up there, Anaroff. For goals, Androv is going to have the most at 63, followed by Kucherov's 45, actually 55. George Jensen had 51, Matthews 50, Crosby had 50 at age 41 somehow. I have no idea how, but yet again, Minnesota is going to go on and capture the Stanley Cup, this time beating Montreal in 6 games in the final. Kirill Kaprizov is somehow going to go on and win the Ted Lindsay and the Hart Trophy, while Matthews is going to win the Art Ross, and Anaroff is going to win the Maurice Richard. Andronov, there we go. Ivan Provorov is going to take home the Norris, the Lady Byng to Crosby, and the Conn Smythe to Boldy. Samsonov is going to win the Vezina, and the Selke is going to go to Eklund. As we head into year number 8, this is what our roster is currently looking like. Why the hell is Connor Bedard on the third line, yet he's a 93 overall? So on the first line, we have Colby Calvert at an 87, Connor Bedard 94, Keefe at an 85, Zegras is only an 82, he's going to cap off there, Dixon 89. Defensively, Owen Power is a 95 overall. Jamie Drysdale, we actually picked him up. I don't know if it was a trade or free agency, but he's an 88. Luke Hughes is also on our team, 89 overall. Dostal is still our starting goalie at an 84 overall, and Marco is our backup at a 73. So somehow at the end of the year, we're going to finish with the same record that we had last season, 30, 41, and 11. The Philadelphia Flyers are going to be the best team in the NHL, followed by the Winnipeg Jets, the Ottawa Senators, and the LA Kings. Connor Bedard is going to have a very good season, 30 goals and 79 points, followed by Owen Power 66, Trevor Zegras 54, Calvert had 50, Connor Bedard 47, Keefe at 46, Luke Hughes 37. Dostal is going to go 23, 34, and 10, 1 shutout, an .894 save percentage, and a .340 goals against average. Nikita Kucherov is going to lead the entire NHL in points with 110, followed by Austin Matthews, who had 108, William Nylander 107, Kyle Connor was up there with 104, Rantanen 102, Braden Point 102, and Mark Scheifele 100. For goals, George Jensen is going to have the most at 59, followed by Tikhonov at 55, Matthews 54, Kaprizov 51, Kyle Connor 50, and the Winnipeg Jets are going to go on and win the Stanley Cup as they beat Buffalo in 6 games in the Stanley Cup final. Nikita Kucherov is going to go on and win the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while George Jensen is going to win the Maurice Richard. Noah Dobson is going to win another Norris, the Lady Byng to Kucherov, and the Conn Smythe is going to go to Radulov. Thatcher Demko is going to win the Vezina and the Selke to Elias Lindholm. As we head into year number 9, I think it's finally time that we make the playoffs. Enough screwing around, 9 straight seasons, actually 8 straight years of missing the playoffs. It is finally time. We have the roster to do so. Connor Bedard, 95 overall, Keefe's an 86, Calvert, 87, 87. Defensively, Owen Powers a 96, Jamie Drysdale 87, Luke Hughes 87. Now our starting goalie only is an 83 overall, but our forwards and defense should carry us. And unfortunately, yet again, we are going to miss the playoffs, actually finishing with a way worse record than last season. We would go 19, 53, and 10. Connor Bedard is going to lead our team in points with 83, followed by Owen Powers 71, Calvert had 54, Keefe had 53, Zegers was up there with 48, Wheel 38, Hughes 38. Calvert actually had 34 goals, leading our entire team. Good job. Dostal is going to go 16, 43, and 7, 2 shutouts, an 897 save percentage, and a 364 goals against average. Matthews is going to have the most points in the entire NHL at 121, followed by George Jensen's 110, and Andronov at 109, Timmy Stu 108, Brady Tkachuk 105. For goals, Lambert is going to have the most at 61. This dude's only 20 years old, scoring 61 goals. That is insane. And the Ottawa Senators are going to go on and win the Stanley Cup as they beat the St. Louis Blues in 6 games. Timmy Stu is going to win the Ted Lindsay and the Hart Trophy, while Austin Matthews is going to win the Art Ross and the Maurice Richard to Lambert. The Buffalo Sabres, Owen Powers, are actually going to take home the Norris, the Lady Byng to Braden Point, and the Conn Smythe to Timmy Stu. Logan Thompson, yet again, is going to win the Vezina, and the Selke is going to go to Alexander Barkov. All right, boys, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to simulate until we make the playoffs. That is the next time you're going to see me here, because at this point, I mean, we're not really improving, and we have a roster good enough to make the playoffs. I mean, come on, Bedsy. Lead us to the promised land, buddy. So I'm either going to jump in when we make the playoffs, or at the end of the video, I'm going to simulate 5 more years, because that is 15. So let's find out if we can actually make the playoffs, or we're going to go all 15 years without winning a Stanley Cup and even making the playoffs. And conveniently enough, somehow we are actually going to finally make the playoffs in our 10th season of the video, as we are going to finish 44, 34, and 4. Connor Bedard is going to lead our team in goals with 32 and points with 80, followed by Calvert 75, Owen Power had 72, Keefe 64, Lucas Dostal is going to go 29, 21, and 2, an 893 save percentage, and a 343 goals against average. Mitch Marner is going to have the most points in the NHL at 121, followed by Matthews 116, Marty Natchez had 107, William Nylander 104. Now for goals, Matthews is going to have the most at 65, followed by Andronov's 56, Tarukanen had 54, Lambert 51, and just like that, we have finally made the playoffs. We are up against the Anaheim Ducks in round number 1. Now finally, can we go on and win a Stanley Cup with this roster? And somehow we actually have made the Stanley Cup final. It has only taken us 10 years to get here. We are up against the Ottawa Senators. In the very first round, we would end up sweeping Anaheim, and then we won a Game 7 over Vegas, and in the conference finals, we dominated Chicago in 5 games. Can we go on and finally capture a Stanley Cup with this team? And finally, we have gone on to win the Stanley Cup as we sweep the Ottawa Senators in 4 games in the Stanley Cup final. It has only taken us 10 long years to get here, but we are finally here, baby. We don't have that many members from the original team, but overall, we got it done before the 15-year time frame. And of course, Mr. Connor Bedard is going to be the Conn Smythe winner for Team EA Sports. I mean, he's been by far our best player the entire video, so I'm not that surprised. And there it is, the Stanley Cup, baby. And here comes our captain, Mr. Connor Bedard, Bedsy, baby, coming to lift the Stanley Cup for the very first time in his career, as Team EA has grown from all 60 overall players to now Stanley Cup champions. I don't even know how many people we have from the original roster, maybe 3 or 4 players, but overall, guys like Owen Power, Connor Bedard, they were here from the start, so shout out to them. And there it is, El Paso Team EA are Stanley Cup champions in 2031, 2032. Mitch Marner is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while the Maurice Richard is going to go to Austin Matthews. Samuel Girard is going to win the Norris, the Lady Byng to Mitch Marner, and the Conn Smythe, obviously, to Bedsy. Brew Lillard is going to win the Vezina, and the Selke Trophy is going to go to Eklund. And that is going to do it for this video, boys. Overall, I think it was very good, but the 60 overall players that we started with, barely any of them stuck around. Most of them did not even grow, to be honest, especially the older players like McKinnon, McDavid. So maybe I should have picked some younger players like rookies or even players that weren't even drafted. But I mean, overall, it took us 10 years to win a Stanley Cup, 10 years to actually make the playoffs. The first season that we made the playoffs, we go on and win the Stanley Cup. What are the chances of that? Anyways, boys, thank you all for watching, and until next time, don't be silly. Wrap your willy.